Good evening. It's now 6:30. And I'd like to call to order this public hearing of the Cunningham Township Board. The hearing to approve a proposed property tax increase for the town of Cunningham for 2021 is being held today, Monday, December 13th at 6:30. The corporate and special purpose property taxes extended or abated for 2020 were $1,825,178. The proposed corporate property taxes to be levied for 2021 are $2.3 million. This represents a 26% increase over the previous year. The property taxes extended for debt service and public building commission leases for 2020 were $0. The estimated property taxes to be levied for debt service and public building commission leases for 2021 are $0. This represents a 0% increase over the previous year. The total property taxes extended or abated for 2020 were $1,825,178. The estimated total property taxes to be levied for 2021 are $2.3 million. This represents a 26% increase over the previous year. I'd like to call this hearing to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu?
Here.
Mr. Evans?
Here.
Ms. Hersey?
Here.
Ms. Colasetti?
Here.
Ms. Bishop?
Here.
Ms. Wilkin?
Here.
Mr. Quisenberry?
Here.
Mayor Marlin?
Here.
Ms. Chenoweth?
Present.
Mr. Williams?
Here.
Next item is public input for this public hearing on the proposed property tax levy. Does anyone wish to address the Cunningham Town Board on the property tax levy? I'm seeing no hands raised. Okay, with no input on this levy, I'm going to call this hearing adjourned, and we'll move on to the Cunningham Town Board meeting. And when you're ready, Ms. Clark, please let me know.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Cunningham Town Board for Monday, December 13th, 2021. Do we have a roll call vote?
Ms. Wu?
Here.
Mr. Evans?
Here.
Ms. Hersey?
Here.
Ms. Colasetti?
Here.
Ms. Bishop?
Here.
Ms. Wilkin?
Here.
Mr. Quisenberry?
Here.
Mayor Marlin?
Here.
Ms. Chenoweth? Ms. Chenoweth? Mr. Williams?
Here.
Next item is approval of the minutes for the November 8th, 2021 meeting and the November 29th, 2021 special meeting. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is that Mary Alice? Okay. Is there a second? Moved by Mary Alice, seconded by James. Any substantive corrections? Okay, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Wu?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Hersey?
Yes.
Ms. Colasetti?
Yes.
Mr. Quisenberry?
Yes.
Ms. Bishop?
Yes.
That motion passes. Are there any additions to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to public participation. Does anyone wish to address the Cunningham Town Board? Please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to committee to verify bills.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Oh, this last month in the town fund, we had $52,137.38. In expenditures in the general assistance fund, we had $73,328.66. Our total in expenditures was $125,466.04. We're basically at the same amount of participants in general assistance as we were last month. 10 of them are homeless. That number is way down from what it has been before, largely because many of our homeless participants are now housed thanks to our housing advocacy work. The emergency housing vouchers of Housing Authority, Pinewood Place, there's a number of reasons. So that's really to be celebrated. At one time, we had almost 40%, 35 to 40% of our participants were actively unsheltered. So this is great. We have a number of participants who have successfully completed 2 months at Salt and Light. They are eligible now to earn hours towards educational and training goals. We have our program set up to begin with the first of the year. And I've asked, once we have a couple of months under our belt, I will have the directors or the leads on that program come and present to the town board so you can see what that track looks like. Our disability and wellness track, we have 4 participants who have been awarded SSI since July. Last year, we had a record 16 participants awarded, largely due to advocacy efforts on the part of our staff. We do have 11 residents who have been helped to date with intensive SOAR case management in a little over a year. And you can kind of see the progress in the supervisor's memo. So essentially, what we are looking at, and I've had us track hours, is that a case can take between 40 and 100 hours of staff time. So they're extremely intensive. But it does mean that we receive those dollars back in terms of general assistance. And it's still the case that the reimbursements we're receiving from the Social Security Administration pay for that staff member. So not only is it revenue neutral, but we're able to have folks who are disabled move from $300 a month to over $800 a month in terms of their support, and they become eligible for vouchers that are specifically for disabled residents. With that, I'm happy to take any questions that you all have about the town bills.
Any questions? Doesn't appear to be any. Okay, would you like to go on?
I think we have to have a vote on the town bills. Is that correct? To approve them.
Yep. Oh, okay. We're ready to go. All right. Could we, is there a motion to approve the town bills? James?
I do have a quick question about one of the bills, or do you want to save that till we have a motion?
Let's get a motion to get the item on the floor and then we can discuss.
All right. I move approval of the town bills as presented.
I'll second.
I believe Chandra was first. So moved by James, seconded by Chandra. James?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. I was looking at the list, and under item area 670, unemployment compensation insurance. I wanted to make sure I wasn't misreading this, but it looked like the town board individuals that we were contributing to unemployment compensation insurance for that area. And I wondered why that would be.
Looking for your names.
I see a thing for me for $7.30. It looks like it's under.
James, I see that, and
that's a mistake.
That's a mistake, but it is something that we've not paid the unemployment yet, and
Okay.
so that's something that we can fix.
Okay.
We
Yeah.
can fix before that particular unemployment wouldn't be due until January. So that's something that we can fix in QuickBooks, and we won't pay it for you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we're not eligible. If the voters don't want us to come back, we don't get any compensation for that.
Yeah, so we can't lay you off is the first part, but also elected officials do not pay unemployment compensation into the state, even for myself or Wayne. I don't believe we are covered by that. So thank you for catching that. We'll take care of it.
Any other questions or comments? Sharice?
Okay. I guess the only questions I really have is under utility expenses. And there's Village of Homer, Sangamon Valley Public Water District twice. And I just want to know what the Village of Homer or the Sangamon Valley Public Water District, what we're paying them for.
Yeah, so we have a utility assistance fund. It was actually seeded by the Unitarian Church. A number of faith-based organizations have given to it and a number of private individuals. And we continue to pay off within Champaign County using only private donations, utility expenses for people with actively shut off water or power, or an imminent shutoff where light heap is not able to move fast enough. So it's usually like it's happening that day. And so in every case we check. And so Sangamon County or Sangamon must be servicing one of the rural areas of Champaign County because we check jurisdiction when we pay that. But certainly this last month, I remember approving utility assistance to Muhammad, which is in the county. And there's been some calls from outside of Champaign to receive assistance for that. So we'll continue that fund. Basically, we'll continue to provide utility shut off or utility shut back on assistance throughout the county as long as those funds are given. And a criteria that the faith-based groups requested at the beginning is that we service the whole county, and we agreed to that because frankly, it's not an additional cost to the township. And it's a negligible staff time.
Is there a separate account set up for that particular thing?
Correct. Yep. So the income either comes through the Angel Donor Fund or comes to the Utility Assistance Fund, which you'll see in the income. And then the expenses is specifically utility assistance. So it's separated out from our utilities for our property or for the office.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Quisenberry,
Yes.
Ms. Wilkin,
Yes.
Ms. Bishop,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Ms. Colacetti,
Yes.
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Mr. Evans.
Yes.
That motion passes. Reports of officers.
Yeah, so I'll just continue to point out a few highlights in the supervisor's memo, which is also available on our website if anyone would like to look at it from the public. So essentially, as you know, we are experiencing transmission rates of COVID-19 in Champaign County that are higher than any other time that we've had. They match or exceed November 2020, which was a similar kind of spike. We also are seeing it among school-age children. There's certainly, it is safer to get COVID-19 right now because so many people are vaccinated and there's some antivirals. But for our participants who are oftentimes have medical fragility, it's a very serious issue. So we continue to campaign to help incentivize folks to get vaccinated. We'll use that out of our other assistance line item that's already budgeted. And we are now going to be doing this week a call through to kind of catch the stragglers and see if we can help them get vaccinated, provide transportation if necessary. And then we do a $50 cash incentive once they show us their complete vaccination card with two shots. So I'm excited and proud about that. And hopefully, it's a little bit every month that we're able to inch up those numbers. Rental assistance, Cunningham Township does receive most of our rental assistances for move-in assistance for those with who are homeless. The folks who are behind on rent have two options right now. One is through emergency rental assistance through Regional Plan Commission, and the other option is now through IDP or PH. So it's through IDHS, which is the state-based. So we help people apply to both places. They start with ERA, and if they've already received that or there's some issue, we can help them apply to IDHS. And if they're not helped there, then we can help them at Cunningham Township. So that continues to be an important service. We did 11 households, supported them with utility support. So that's coming down from 18 in October, about the same as we had in September. And so we continue to refer folks who are simply behind to LIHEAP and Salvation Army for support. The eviction tracking and prevention, I've heard from several town board members you wanted to track this closely. And so we provide a grid each month that shows exactly the date we were in court, how many were first appearances, and the total cases that day. And I would like to, it's harder to figure out what the resolution was because eviction cases are sealed, but we're trying to work something out so that we can actually see of the actual cases, how many are being resolved. Mediation is active currently at the courthouse. We are approaching folks and helping them apply. Oftentimes that's for move-in assistance to move into a new place because the eviction, if it can't be handled in mediation, it usually is going to be completed. With housing advocacy and housewarming, this has really become a signature program of ours. We've helped 236 participants representing 142 households since the beginning of last fiscal year apply for subsidized housing. And 35%, and that's up from, each month we track it, but 35% of those who we've helped apply have actually successfully moved in. So that's amazing. Pinewood continues to be a really important option for participants with disabilities who are awaiting SSI determination. That's the new development in East Urbana. We've provided 10 referrals and the city of Champaign provided 14 referrals. So essentially there's that development should be close to full soon. I also know I spoke with IDA recently and they are interested in getting additional applications from our community for projects like this. So I would encourage, as we look at affordable housing opportunities, I think there are dollars available and it really is about, partnering with the Housing Authority to attach vouchers to new development. But I would encourage us to look at those. We've had 4 residents move in to date to Pinewood. That's 4 out of 10. Of course, we would like to see that go faster, but the emergency housing vouchers at the Housing Authority has really kind of overwhelmed their system. And so we expect to see additional move-ins with the first of the year. Let's see, we essentially are no longer referring people to the COVID housing vouchers for the homeless and very high-risk residents. So far, we've been told to kind of wait and pause on that as the Housing Authority processes the applications that they have, which may be the complete amount for the 163 that they have. We continue to provide housewarming support to furnish apartments with homeless residents. It's a very popular program and 22 homeless households have been assisted. This provides vouchers or credit at Habitat for Humanity and Salt and Light for folks to buy their housewares. And we also have a partnership with the Housing Authority to offer housewarming to their reentry participants. So we have had several folks access it that way as well. That's 100% angel donor funded. Our Bridge to Home Rapid Rehousing continues to chug along. Right now, it's specifically focused on rapid rehousing. We've served 5 households, and several have gotten employment after they received housing. So that's really important. We have 2 more referrals in process. And we've been working with the city to change our ESG grant. We've actually been investing in street outreach and emergency housing services with the anticipation of being reimbursed for that. I can give an update once we have the ink is signed with the state and whatnot. With emergency housing, we have helped to date since we started at the beginning of last fiscal year. So we're looking at about 18 months in. We've served 35 households. That includes 38 adults and 47 children. These are children who are in Urbana schools or staying overnight at Crisis Nursery. Last month, we served 4 households, and we had 1 household move into different housing and 1 household who is housed with the AHV voucher after 121 days. We are now providing internet access and laptops to everyone who goes through our emergency housing program. And we're working with the school district, and they're going to be furnishing the units with in-apartment computers. Our digital inclusion campaign has really expanded this semester. Partly that's because the federal government has increased its support for broadband access. So last month we held an event at the Common Ground Food Co-op. We could help connect 16 residents with Lifeline phones and expanded emergency broadband. That subsidized internet access at $50 a month. They are changing the emergency broadband program. We've been in a couple of webinars about those changes, and we're going to help people reconnect. So let's see. Last. Bucket Brigade continues to chug along. We do about 12 households per week. We served 60 neighbors, with the majority of them being children this last month. Our winter coat giveaway is underway. We distributed over 100 coats, several hundred coats to over 100 people. We gave out 45 gift cards for meals at Mays. Those were actually donated by Mays. So they paid out of pocket for those gift cards. And then we paid for the meals to the attendees. We also had a vaccine clinic on location. We're still accepting donations of clean and gently used coats, hat, mittens, and gloves, and new socks. People can drop those off at 205 West Green Street, across from Urbana Free Library at Township. So there's a nice photo of our winter giveaway. And Solidarity Gardens, we're now going into our winter season. We've developed our affiliate program, and we're holding a mini retreat in January with our Solidarity Gardens leaders and community gardeners to plant 2022. And I think one of the areas that we really want to move into is distributing food on location at schools when parents pick up children at aftercare. So essentially, we want to bring fresh produce to where parents are already coming so that they can pick up that food as part of that, also picking up their kids. So we're working with CU Public Health and Sola Gracia and Solidarity Gardens to kind of link up those pieces of the train, so we can not only produce more vegetables next year, but we have a distribution network that really helps to get those vegetables to school-age children. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Mary Alice.
Danielle, thank you for all of your work and for your staff. I'm wondering if you have an update on when the Tableau dashboard would be available.
Which you cut out.
You had mentioned that you had an intern working on a Tableau dashboard so that we could see things in different cadences.
Yeah, so it's the dashboard has become an extremely complex draft document with a number of errors that need to be corrected. So basically, we're in the process of cleaning it up and making it public presentable. That in turn has 2 different roles, and one of those roles is housing advocacy, and they've been slammed with that work. That obviously is the more important. And then the second, their second priority is to clean up the data dashboard. So I was really hoping to have that for you this month. And I think, we're probably 2 months out to be showcasing that to you. But that basically what it does is the staff at Township update their numbers every single week. So they're reporting weekly through spreadsheets that have already been created on exactly their metrics. And the data dashboard is and those metrics are how I produce the supervisor's memo for you. The hope is that we could have a kind of a data dashboard that would be really, like regularly kind of real time up to date, that would also be linked off of the website. So I am hoping that we can get to that, but it is really a matter of how crazy rental assistance needs are. And if they could quiet down for a bit, we could finish the data dashboard project. So I don't have an ETA on that, but I'm hoping in the next few months we'll be able to finish that project.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Grace?
Thank you. Thanks so much for the update and the report and the great work here. Especially love the digital inclusion and the laptops and broadband and helping people apply for SSI through that long, complicated process. And then with housing, appreciate all that great work. And I was wondering, what are some of the top barriers for the participants who aren't successfully moved into housing? Like if it's capacity or choice or housing options, but kind of what are the biggest barriers for the 35% that doesn't get successfully moved into housing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's actually 65%. The 35% have moved into housing. So I think that, and I presented to the town board and the county board on this, and maybe I sound a little bit like a broken record, but the statement, we don't take housing vouchers, or the unstated discrimination against people with housing vouchers, is a big piece of that. We have landlords who are making people income qualify at the rate of the full rent and not the subsidized rent. So they're essentially, that's a way that it's discrimination against housing voucher holders by a different name. I'm not sure that's legal. I think that your HRO at the city level is actually looking into that right now. And there may be some ways to kind of call the landlords to task on that. There's implicit bias against African-American residents in our community. There's bias against families that have children because landlords are feeling very squirrely about the eviction ceiling law. And I 100% support the ceiling of eviction records. I think it's the right thing to do. We have seen landlords basically demanding credit at a higher rate than they have typically requested. So we have a lot of folks circulating with vouchers who are having a hard time finding housing in our community. So I would say that is the number one issue. The second issue is just capacity of housing authority to process applications. They're doing a great job, but it's a big job. And, the vouchers came down somewhat suddenly, and, they've been hustling, as we have and our partners, to make sure that we get those distributed. I think there are some of the folks who are not housed are not actively homeless. And so essentially they don't qualify for the home, like the vouchers that were just for homeless residents staying in shelter for 2 weeks, which was the first C-19 vouchers. So we do have folks who are doubled up with friends and family or precariously housed, and their eligibility we still are doing housing advocacy with them. They've requested support. We certainly prioritize them if there are vulnerabilities there, medical or domestic violence, or concerns about safety, having children. There are various vulnerabilities that kind of escalate those cases. But I would say those are the primary issues. Availability of affordable housing is a big one, especially people receiving SSI. If you are getting $800 a month from the federal government, then essentially your rent needs to not be over, say, $280 a month. Well, there's no place that you can get for $280 a month unless you're, doing the group house thing. So I think that another piece of the equation is we really need another. I don't think it's fashionable to call them SROs anymore, single resident occupancy. But I do think that's what we need affordable housing that's efficiency apartments for people with disabilities, or people on fixed incomes, retirement, or other kinds of things. So that is something that we should really be looking to grow opportunities for that kind of housing.
Any other questions? Chris?
Yeah, Fred Grosser, maybe you might want to chime in, but isn't discriminating against source of income against our human rights ordinance?
I can't
Yes.
give an offhand opinion on that. I'd have to read it.
Yes, it is.
it's easy to look up the ordinance and it's very clear that it is against the law.
Okay.
But not in Champaign. It's not against the law in Champaign. It used to be, and then they changed the language to exempt voucher holders from source of payment.
Is our Carla Boyd putting out a cease and desist letter to landlords?
She's actively working, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you, Diane.
Yeah, Carla has met with Kyle, who's our staff member involved with eviction prevention and discrimination. And we continue to work with the city of Urbana. We want to take on this issue where it becomes visible. And there's certainly examples that we have forwarded of overt discrimination. And then it's a little harder to catch the non-overt discrimination. And as I presented several years ago, I really think that once we get through the overt discrimination, testing, I think, would be in order as a way to basically eradicate that practice in the community.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Danielle. Wayne, did you have a report?
No.
Okay. Is there any unfinished business? I don't believe there is. New business, we have an audit presentation. Is there someone who needs to be promoted to a panelist for the audit?
Yeah, so I'll be presenting on the audit this evening. We don't have our auditor present.
Okay.
And I will be very brief. We had a remarkably clean audit. There were no findings whatsoever, as you can see in the management letter. Thanks to our new accounting and operations manager, the process was extremely smooth. We ended the year with a new significant asset, our property, and a healthy net position of 2.7 million. You can see a set aside for the potential property tax liability of $122,000. Essentially, we are in really good shape. We have assets that are valuable, that will continue to appraise and increase in value, and we have a nest egg that does not exceed the state's cap on savings, but is healthy and allows us to address any liabilities that come in the future, possibly leverage up new programs, those kind of things. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about the audit. It will be on file it is on file for the public to see. It's been posted to the News Gazette that it's on file. It's both at the clerk's office and at our office, and it's online if anyone would like to see it.
Any questions? James.
Yeah, my only question is about the note on the note number 1 on the financial statements with regard to modified cash accounting. And it would help if you could explain why we use that and why our auditors are a little bit cautious about saying anything about it.
Yep. So each year you'll see this note. And essentially, I had a long conversation with CLA, our last auditor, about whether we should convert. So there's cash basis, there's modified cash basis, and there's accrual basis. Accrual basis basically means that you put dollars and cents, you put expenditures and income in the year that they're anticipated. And on a cash basis, you put it in the year that it actually hits the bank account. So with a modified cash basis is that, but there's some modifications around liabilities at the end of the year. And I will ask Wayne or look to Wayne if there's further details that could be offered to the modified cash basis. When I spoke with Hope, who's a principal at CLA, we had an extensive conversation because we inherited this accounting process from the past administration. So this is not anything new to Township. It is generally recognized that, working on on an accrual basis may be simpler, but it would require a pretty significant change in our processes. And at the time that Hope and I spoke about it, she really felt that it was not substantive or useful, that it would mean that there's a note put in each audit that we're on a modified cash basis. But she said the amount of pain to change your books is probably not worth it, given, the transparency of your books, the size of Township and whatnot. So at this point, unless I hear otherwise, the thought is that we would continue to do what is to account for monies in the same ways that the Township has for quite a while, which is the modified cash basis.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to the first action item, which is ordinance number T 2021-12-003, an ordinance levying taxes for all town purposes for the town of Cunningham, Champaign County, Illinois, for the tax year 2021, collectible in 2022.
Do you want to get a motion on the table, or would you like me to?
Is there a
couple of words?
Do you want to present this and then we'll get a motion on the table?
So essentially every year we set our tax levy, and honestly, to be 100% transparent, we could say that we're levying, $100 million, and we will always be capped at what is allowed under tax caps. So in some ways, what matters is if we were to levy less than what tax caps provides. In this case, we are levying essentially to the maximum, which is a very marginal difference from year to year. Essentially what we want to do is to make sure that we request a levy, or we declare a levy amount that anticipates new growth and potentially portions of the hospitals or other properties where there is contestation about property taxes, that if they were to be put back on the tax rolls, that we would be able to recoup those tax costs. So it's actually really important that we levy, we put a request in that is over the amount that we're anticipating, so that we can capture any new growth or those new properties or new value that's put on the tax rolls. But otherwise, I would say, because we are under tax caps as Township, this exercise is somewhat performative because we will be capped at what we are capped at.
Okay, can we get a motion on the floor?
Sure.
Mary Alice?
Yeah, I was going to ask a question, but I will first make the motion. So I move approval of ordinance number T 2021-12-003, an ordinance levying taxes for all town purposes for the town of Cunningham, Champaign County, Illinois, for the tax year 2021, collectible as in 2022.
Is there a second?
Okay. Sorry.
Grace?
Yeah.
Okay, moved by Mary Alice, seconded by Grace. Okay, questions, Mary Alice?
Yeah, so since we're kind of guessing an overall amount that we're going to have, and we also have in section 2, we have the amount that's levied for each of the areas. Does that proportionally get decreased based on how does that difference between what we're actually able to levy and what's in here be accounted for in section 2?
Yeah, so what happens is we'll get a proposed extension back where the clerk basically puts a kind of percentage amount in either fund, right? So if it's knocked down by, say, 15%, it would be 15% in each fund. At that time, I, as supervisor, have the ability to actually set the fund amounts differently at a different ratio. I do that in consultation with Wayne, and it's at a time in the year when we're already building our budget for next year. So it's much more informed by next year's budget than this tax levy is here. So essentially that's what the process looks like. And we do have an opportunity to rebalance those funds. The only meaning in that is, the town board fund is more permissive. The general assistance fund is more restrictive. The general assistance fund is not really under the purview of the town board. The town fund is. And basically I look at what our general assistance and assistance programs generally, what it's looking like for that year. and what the trends are, and then make, in the budget process, make the best possible guess to what the assistance levels will be and what budget we'll need.
Great.
So, Mary Alice, just so you know, we levied the same amount last year, the 2.3 million. What was actually extended was $1,825,177.95. That was further adjusted by certificates of error that can adjust what we actually get up or down. I estimate if the hospitals don't come on, that we'll get approximately 25,000 more. That assumes no growth, though we will have some growth. But we're going to be capped at at what the referendum was approved at, which is 0.3015. Now there is kind of an asterisk to that statement because of new legislation that passed last year, and we're still trying to figure out how that impacts us. So there could be an additional $16,000, but I've been working with the clerk's office and the treasurer's office to figure out how that new legislation impacts us.
Thank you, Wynton.
Grace, did you have a question?
Yes, I think Wayne was already maybe answered it, but if you just could repeat, clarify, because my question was what sets that cap for the township, and if this had to do with that vote, and that's the referendum you're talking about, and that's what sets the cap for the township. Is that right?
So yeah, so normally the cap is, and it's not a cap on a rate, it's a cap on a levy, and normally that levy cap is set by CPI, which was 1.4%, according to the Department of Revenue. Next year, it'll probably be a lot higher. It could be upwards of 6%. But the PTEL statute only allows us, it only cap CPI, the CPI increase to 5% for us since we're non-home rule. So that it's PTEL that limits us. However, because of the referendum, we're actually allowed to go above that to a rate of 0.3015 per $100 of assessed value.
Because the referendum is for the rate, right?
Right. The way it was written, it was for a rate.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay. We have a motion by Mary Alice, second by Grace. Could the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Mr. Evans,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Ms. Colacetti,
Yes.
Ms. Bishop,
Yes.
Mr. Quisenberry,
Yes.
Ms. Wilkin.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next item is Resolution T 2021-12-019R, which is a resolution authorizing the Township Supervisor to execute a lease agreement with the new Lincoln Square LLC for use of space for the Township Assessor.
So this resolution is to extend the lease for the Township Assessor's Office. I emailed you kind of the highlights of it, which I'm sorry I don't have, but if you give me a moment. But basically we're renewing through the end of 2022. We are, the rent is staying the same because we are getting kind of a discount off of the rent. We're paying it all up front, the $10,000 and give me a moment, $10,200. This lease does not have a tenant option like we did this year, so we're gonna have to renegotiate. But I talked to the landlord, and he's committed to renegotiating. So we'll have the number for the new year, for the new lease for the calendar year 2023 in time so we can put it in our budget for fiscal year 23.
Any questions for Wayne? The actual copy of the lease was emailed to the town board on Friday. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Mary Alice.
So I noticed that there's a cap on if you use more than a certain amount of utilities, right?
Right. So basically, we get a credit for the first $50 in utilities. After the first $50 for any particular month, the township would have to pay. This year, we've not exceeded that cap.
Okay, that was my question.
Though, December isn't up yet. I can just tell you that, part of it is just COVID and people working remotely, but also the fact that we're in an enclosed space, we really don't use the heat or air conditioning that much because, we just kind of share the air from the rest of the mall. That's not to say we don't use it, but we don't use it that much.
James.
Yeah, Wayne, thanks for sending me the square footage. This is a pretty good deal at under $12 a square foot for office space. And I was curious. I assume they take care of garbage service for you. That's not a thing we have to worry about.
So we do have someone come in and clean once a week. The office, they do mostly disinfecting, but we take out the garbage if it gets full, but there are garbage bins that we can put our refuge in.
Yeah, they provide a dumpster for you guys to. Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'll just add, and it's also offered to the supervisor's office that we have a jump seat at the assessor's office, because there are times when there's just too much chaos in our office. And so there's a quiet place at Lincoln Square that we can go to. So anyway, we appreciate that.
Okay, could we get a motion for approval?
I move
James.
approval of the lease.
Move. It's second?
Second.
Is that Jaya?
Yeah.
Okay, moved by James, seconded by Jaya. Any further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Mr. Quisenberry,
Yes.
Ms. Colacetti,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
Yeah.
Ms. Wilkin,
Yes.
Ms. Bishop, Mr. Evans,
Yes.
That motion passes. Last item on the agenda is approval of the town board meeting schedule for calendar year 2022. Is there a motion for approval?
Move to approve Township Board meeting schedule for 2022.
Moved by Chandra. Second.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mary Alice. Any discussion? Chandra.
Just wondered why the meetings are scheduled for 6:30 and not 6.
Tradition.
Because as we see now, if the meetings start at 6, we could possibly get to council closer to 7 rather than 6:30. That's just my observation and my suggestion.
Just from the supervisor's perspective, we'd be happy to meet at the time that's convenient for town board members. So.
Grace.
That's going to be my question, because it says there's only one with an asterisk. That is the asterisk meaning that it starts at 6:30. Does that mean that all the rest start at 6 except for that one in January? So my question is, are they starting at 6 or 6:30? Because I'm kind of reading it that they start at 6 except the one in January that starts at 6:30. Is that not right?
Well, they've typically started at 6:30. I don't know what the asterisk is for.
Well, like the second page, the asterisk, it looks like says the township starts at 6:30, and then only the one in January has an asterisk and the rest don't.
Oh, I see. No, they've typically started at 6:30. If you wanted to amend this schedule to have them all start at 6, we could do that.
I guess I'm confused still on how it is written now. It is written now with kind of the understanding that they're all starting at 6:30.
Danielle, do you know what the schedule means?
Let's see. So essentially, if you look at the very bottom, it says township starts at 6:30 and city council cow starts at 7. This was prepared by the clerk. I asked the clerk to basically sync up the township meetings, the town board meetings with the city council meetings. So they put this together. But basically, my understanding is that township would start at 6:30, city council and the cow would start at 7. Township has grown a lot in 4 years. So our reports, when I was on town board, it was a 10-minute conversation and the town board just verified the bills of general assistance and that was it. But we are doing a lot more now. So our conversations go longer. So I would, defer to the will of the town board for whatever you would think is convenient to you.
Mary Alice?
I actually would prefer to keep it at 6:30. I mean, right now we're all meeting via Zoom. I would hope that in the next year that we're going to be back in person. And in that case, several of us work jobs and don't get home in time to eat. So that's why I like the 6:30 time slot, because it gives us an opportunity to have food before we come in.
Well, we have a motion on the floor for the schedule as written, which has the town board's meeting starting at 6:30.
I have just a quick question. I know I'm not going to vote on this, but are you guys looking at a resolution? Because if you are, I did not get this.
It's the last page of the meeting packet. There's no resolution. It's a schedule.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, correct me if I'm wrong, Fred, but the town board can make motions, resolutions, and ordinances. And if you don't have a resolution, I understand that it would just be a motion to approve the agenda, the town board schedule as printed or with amendments.
Grace?
Thanks. I just didn't know if like 6:15 was a reasonable compromise, or that's too weird to not start on a half hour.
I think that would be confusing to the public. So we have a motion on the floor for 6:30. Unless there's an amendment to change that, that's what we'll vote on.
I will make the amendment to have the town board meeting start at 6 p.m. instead of 6:30.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion to change this to 6 p.m., seconded by Grace. Do we vote on this amended motion first and then the original, Fred? James?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So we'll need a roll call vote.
Actually, we need a vote on the amendment.
That's
Correct.
what we're talking about.
That's what I'm talking about.
You vote on the amendment and then you'll vote on the motion, whether it's been amended or not.
Okay, so the amendment is for a start time of 6 p.m. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
No,
was that a no? Is that what you said?
said a no. Yep,
Okay.
I said a no.
Okay. Mr. Evans,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
No.
Ms. Colasetti,
Yes.
Ms. Bishop,
Yes.
Ms. Wilkin,
Yes.
Mr. Quisenberry,
Yes.
That motion passes. So this has been amended to have a start time of 6 p.m. Now we'll vote on the motion itself.
Ms. Wu,
Yes.
Mr. Evans,
Yes.
Ms. Hersey,
Yes.
Ms. Colacetti,
Yes.
Ms. Bishop,
Yes.
Ms. Wilkin,
Yes.
Mr. Quisenberry.
Yes.
That motion passes. So we will amend the schedule for the meeting times to start at 6 p.m. for town board. With no further business before the town board, this meeting is adjourned.